Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, the People's National Movement National Women's League has told Public Utilities Minister Barry Padarath, very hard-working minister, one of the hardest working ministers in the Kamala Persad administration, to stay out of opposition leader Pennelope Beckles' business. PNM telling people to stay out of their business. Padarath had criticized Beckles' leadership regarding the controversy surrounding PNM Senator Janelle John Bates, who faces the Committee of Privileges over allegations that she edited a witness statement. In response, the league defended Beckles, stating that only the opposition leader has the power to appoint or remove PNM senators. Wow, like we don't know that. That doesn't mean that we can't criticize how she's taking so long to make her decision. They dismissed Padarath's comments as political distraction and called him to focus on financial and procurement issues within his own government instead. My response, very simple: bold-face, extremely bold-face is the PNM double standard as well. These are the same patriots who have been encouraging rebels within the UNC, the famous five, and others, to remove Kamala from her position as political leader. Only always macro in UNC business, but then telling us not to macro yours. Well, I'm not a UNC member, but when I say us, those who support the UNC. These supremacists, I have a very valid reason for saying supremacists, believe that they can be prejudiced bullies and then still pretend to be victims when other members of society expose their deception and hypocrisy. You could say what you want. Padarath and other members of the United National Congress and government have all rights to criticize Penny, because she is being a hypocrite at this point in time. If the tables had turned, she would have been calling on the Prime Minister to remove that senator. Minister of Justice Devesh Maharaj introduced the landmark Parole Bill 2026 in the Senate yesterday, proposing a new system aimed at rehabilitating prisoners and reducing repeat offenders. He explained that legislation marks a major shift toward preparing inmates for structured reintegration into society. As long as it doesn't include individuals who committed very violent crimes, armed robbery and murder and stuff like that, I'm okay with this. This major policy update follows alarming prison statistics showing a 57 to 58% repeat offending rate among inmates between 2022 and 2026. Under this new framework, parole will not be an automatic release, but an earned privilege managed by a newly created parole board. To qualify for early release under strict supervision, prisoners will be legally required to pass mandatory rehabilitation assessments. Now that sounds wonderful. And successfully complete community-led or faith-based reform programs.
So more than half of our young persons in Trinidad and Tobago enter the prison service recycling, and they're coming out, doing more crimes, heading back in.
Minister of Justice Devesh Maharaj says statistics indicate that persons released from prison are likely to relapse into a life of crime. Through the Parole Bill 2026, the government is seeking to rehabilitate prisoners to ensure they are fit to reintegrate into society.
The structured rehabilitative framework provided within this bill assures the public that persons released from incarceration are less likely to be further entrenched in criminality during their sentence and are more likely to reintegrate as law-abiding and productive members of society after having gone through some sort of rehabilitative exercise.
The minister explained that while some rehabilitation initiatives already exist within the prison service, many are supported mainly by faith-based and non-governmental organizations with no dedicated state funding for research and program development.
There are programs such as educational and adult literacy programs. There are technical and vocational programs, spiritual, cultural, social, and sporting programs. But this is where it becomes a little concerning. Most of the programs, and this is the prison, most of the programs are rolled out with support primarily from various faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations. So the state by itself is not managing this process.
Minister in the Ministry of Housing, Philip Alexander, described the bill as timely and long overdue.
This is not about releasing prisoners. This is managing offenders through transformation of lives by creating a system of supervised personal responsibility. That one thing is critical to the redevelopment of a strata of society with nowhere to go. This gives persons whose lives have run off the rails a way back to full contributing member of society.
The Parole Bill 2026 seeks to introduce a parole system to permit the early release of prisoners during their period of incarceration, while promoting their rehabilitation and reintegration into society under structured supervision. Daniel John, TTT News.
On Thursday, May 21, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago will experience generally sunny, slightly hazy, and breezy conditions. The daytime maximum temperature is expected to reach 31 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius. The heat index will make the air feel closer to 34 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric humidity levels are expected to range from 65% to 90%. Breezes will blow from the east-northeast to east-southeast at speeds of 5 to 35 kilometers per hour. Open waters around the islands will remain moderate with wave heights peaking near 2.0 meters. Sheltered coastal areas will experience calmer conditions with wave heights between 1.0 to 1.5 meters. Sunrise will occur at 5:43 a.m. and sunset will follow at 6:22 p.m.
Regional news now. President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali issued a stern warning to public transport operators against making excessive unauthorized fare hikes. He explained that despite Guyana producing crude oil, the country relies on imported refined fuel, which leaves citizens vulnerable to global price spikes caused by international conflicts. To protect consumers, the government completely dropped its import excise tax on fuel to 0%, saving citizens about $500 per gallon and absorbing over $100 billion annually in costs. Because the state is heavily subsidizing fuel, the administration expects minibus, taxi, and speedboat operators to absorb temporary global market increases rather than overcharging the commuters. The government doing its part, you do your part too, no man. Backing this warning, the Ministry of Public Works ordered all transport operators to prominently display official approved fare structures, cautioning that anyone caught price gouging will face the immediate suspension or revocation of their commercial license. The Jamaican Civil Service Association warned that staff members at the National Works Agency grew restive and were prepared to strike if long-standing workplace grievances were not resolved as soon as possible. JCSA President Tika Clark Griffiths confirmed that tensions mounted because employees were still waiting for a new pay structure following a stagnant 2023 compensation review. Workers voiced serious anger over job security fears and severe salary anomalies, noting instances where supervisors were earning less money than the staff members they supervised. What kind of thing is that? The dispute officially escalated when approximately 90% of the agency's island-wide workforce unexpectedly called in sick as a direct form of industrial action. As long as you're not an essential workers, don't tell me that nurses doing that tata in Jamaica as well. While the government stated it was moving to address these complaints, employees remained highly anxious about their future as public works operations transition into new institutional arrangements under the One Road Authority. Well, in your case, like in Jamaica, you voted back for Andrew Holness, and I think he's a good prime minister, anyhow you take it. But I did say that he governed in a sort of a mediocre way. Let's hope that he improves in this term. Barbados has begun a new round of hurricane preparedness meetings ahead of the start of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season on June 1st, with emergency, security, health, utility, tourism, and private sector agencies involved in the planning. Prime Minister Mia Mottley said the country must take a disciplined approach to readiness as climate change continues to make weather systems more unpredictable. Since you have a very deep concern about climate change, my dear globalist Barbadian Prime Minister, are you willing to tell Barbadians to stop rearing cattle and to stop driving cars, go back to using donkey carts and bicycles? Because that's what the Green New Deal is all about. They say that rearing large amounts of cattle, it causes these animals to emit too much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And also, definitely cars. You see, with the Green New Deal, only the elites, only the prime ministers of nations like me or Motley, only members of the media, only the filthy rich will deserve or should be able to use luxuries such as vehicles and use airplanes. Everybody else will have to go back to using sailboats and rowboats and stuff like that. Because remember, it's the mass population. In other words, the rest of us have to go back into caveman days because of the Green New Deal. I always say I believe in balance. We need to protect our environment. Stop making it sound as though people have to lose their cows and their cars. The Davis administration outlined a wide-ranging 5-year national agenda during the speech from the throne, targeting critical reforms across labor, immigration, healthcare, and national security. Delivered by Governor General Dame Cynthia Pratt, the policy blueprint prioritizes economic relief and systemic modernizations. Key legislative priorities include reviewing the minimum wage, introducing a contributory pension plan, and tightening immigration enforcement to protect local jobs. All that sounds like good policies. Telling you, it's very possible that this political party that won the elections is the one that leans more on the UNC side of governance, which is better type of governance. In health and security, the administration pledged to advance universal health coverage and expand police resources to combat rising violent crime. Additionally, the multi-sector plan focuses heavily on building resilient infrastructure, fast-tracking renewable energy initiatives to lower electricity costs, and establish a national development plan to guide sustainable economic growth across the Family Islands. Now, the thing about it is the opposition is saying that, the talk is cheap and they already made a lot of these promises in the past. But let's hope that for their own sake, the government's sake, you fulfill these promises this time around, whatever you wasn't able to keep the last term, because you can't do everything in 5 years. It's just like with the UNC. The UNC inherited a bankrupt and a lawless nation. And therefore, most of their promises that they made during the campaign, they won't be able to accomplish or fulfill in these 5 years, people. And this is why, for once in Trinidad's history, they should give UNC a second term to finish the job, in other words, to finish the job of recovering our nation's economy. International news now. I am on the side of America. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is putting partisan politics aside because, from what I know, he's basically a radical leftist. So Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is putting partisan politics aside and praising President Trump for being a more mature, more disciplined version of himself in his second term. Everyone knows that he became a much better leader this time around. He learned from a lot of his mistakes in his first term. Bezos gave Trump credit for having many good ideas, and he said he will work with any president in order to, of course, to restore greatness, make America great again. He may not be a MAGA in the sense of as a conservative, but he wants to make America great again. Most people in America want that. It is just that they're so obsessed with politics that they pretend as though they agree with the extremely far left part of the Democrat Party. The UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs strongly condemned the treacherous terrorist attacks carried out using drones that came from Iraqi territory, one of which was carried out on Sunday towards the Baraka nuclear power plant. What's going on there, man? This is a blatant violation of the sovereignty of the countries and their airspace, and as well as a clear violation of international law. Does Iran have anything to do with this? Most likely, yeah? Most likely. There's a need for the Iraqi government's commitment to immediately prevent any hostile action originating from its territory without conditions or restrictions. Exactly. 100% correct. The UAE is 100% correct in their statement there. And we all know the Iraqi government most likely has nothing to do with this. This is Iran. This is all about Iran. An Israeli officer was killed by sniper fire in southern Lebanon recently. What the media will not tell you is that the Hezbollah terrorist was hiding inside a church. Yes, people, he wasn't inside a normal house, a home, a civilian home, or in a military base. He was inside a church and fired from within it. Now, of course, the mainstream media, the Kakash media in Trinidad and Tobago and the Al Jazeera and all the other jihadist media like BBC and CNN wouldn't even really highlight this, and it wouldn't show any outrage either, as Amr Safati, a Jewish Christian, he raised a very important point. Recently, when I had a big scandal with the IDF soldier that desecrated a Christian statue, right? The whole world was outraged about it. No, I'm not saying what he did was right. It was not right what he did, right? Especially it shines a bad light on the Israeli government after a lot of propaganda is already pushed that, they're always targeting Christians in Israel, which is a lie, a blatant lie. And he was punished for his crime, his deeds. But, there's no outrage for this jihadist using a church in order to commit this crime. No one is going to cry out and say, well, the Hezbollah authorities need to hold this man accountable for his actions. I'm telling you, it is craziness. It is double standard. It's just like on PNM and the tribals in Trinidad are double standard. The jihadists could do anything they want and everyone else calls them freedom fighters. When Israel stands up for their rights, they're called, they're accused of committing genocide. And if they do make errors, like how that IDF soldier definitely made an error there, he should have never done that, everyone calls for justice, but only when Israel is involved.
Bible quote of the day. 2 Samuel 5:10-12 NKJV. And David went on and became great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. Then Hiram king of Tyre sent messengers to David, and cedar trees, and carpenters and masons. And they built David a house. So David knew that the Lord had established him as king over Israel, and that he had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people Israel. This Bible verse makes it very clear that Israel wasn't only a person but an actual territory and kingdom.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.